Back now on the Pulse, looking at all things people, power, and politics. Here to talk about a number of political issues. In studio, Troy Mayor Ethan Baker, and live via Zoom, Gabby Kearns with Braver Angels. Good to see you both. Thanks for joining us here tonight.
Good to be here, Roop.
Thanks for having me.
Good to have you. Gabby, well, let's begin with you. Some news out of the Trump administration today. Tom Homan essentially saying we're going to draw down 700 troops in Minnesota as local cooperation seems to be on the up and up. Is this encouraging to you tonight?
Yeah, it's a really tricky situation. I think folks on the ground are nervous about what's going on, but they're also nervous about the temperature going up more and more. So I think it really depends on the situation. So I think we're going to wait and see how that turns out.
You know, they say it's like a 25% decrease. There are still 2,000 troops on the ground there as they speak in Minnesota. And they're saying that they're seeing more unprecedented cooperation between local, state, and the feds. And that's why this is happening. Is this a good sign that the locals are also working with the feds?
Yeah, I think, this is the more that we have locals involved, I think the better that their voices are a part of the conversation, that, there's some cooperation, working together, being heard. So I think, the more that we can get the conversation going, the more that we can hear different perspectives, and it's not just a temperature going up out of control, I think the better. So I think just bringing people together and getting the conversation going is what's most important here. A
really important conversation, Ethan Baker, that is happening as a leader of a community. You know how important it is for people to feel secure on every end. So you have ICE agents that feel that they're not going to be attacked. You have feds that believe that they can accomplish their goals. But then you have locals who say, maybe we should help. And that's what you're seeing right now. I understand that in Minnesota, there are more officers that are working with local law enforcement to go to the jails and take people into custody so that they don't have to be out on the streets as much. Talk about what likely is happening that we're not noticing right now.
Well, I think the fact that we're not hearing as much of the temperature going up is a very good sign, right? Homan has changed the tone there a little bit. Obviously, the president's talking about having a little bit of a softer touch as it relates to some of these immigration enforcement actions. But Homan going there has really made a difference. Also in his press conference this morning, he talked about the cooperation of the governor and the local officials there. That's a huge, huge advantage for everybody. That's allowed everybody to take a deep breath, to work together, to find some common ground, to do what, the majority of Americans feel. Obviously, we don't want criminals on our streets. We're all very concerned about that. But when you see people actually communicating, taking some breaths, working together, you do see the temperature come down, and you see an effective use of, resources.
Well, I think the effective use of resources we've seen before and with other administrations. We know under Biden there was deportations. We know under Obama, he was known as the deporter-in-chief because he deported millions of people. But it's the way in which he did it. When you hear the president basically say, today, he said to NBC, I learned maybe we could use a little bit of a softer touch on immigration. Should the president have known this already?
Sure. I mean, you'd think so, but he has a style. We've talked about it many times, and his style is generally not the softer touch to start with. So I'm very pleased by hearing him say that. I hope that's the case moving forward, and that's not just coming from him, but that's Homan, that's also Secretary Noem, that's Stephen Miller, all of the people who are affected or effectively making these decisions that are having such a great effect in our communities. Those are the people that also need to have that softer touch.
Gabby, it's so important. The group that you run and help kind of adjudicate these different events and these protests and these different events. They're so important that people feel like they have a voice and they have a part in what's going on. How important is it right now for everyone, including your folks in your group, to feel like they have a voice and they have a way to affect change?
Oh, it's so important. I mean, in times like these, everyone wants to know what they can do and how they can contribute, and that's what we do. We bring together folks on the ground. We're going to have a debate actually on ICE in the coming weeks. On Friday night, we're going to have a forum where we bring together folks, some who are former Border Patrol agents with formerly undocumented immigrants, along with a couple of congressmen, Tom Suozzi from New York and others. So, we're really trying to get as many perspectives as possible in the room so people can hear from different people what's going on, what are their priorities, and what can we learn from them.
I was listening to a few lawmakers and talking to them, and they were basically telling me that at this point, there's many law enforcement agents out there, Gabby and Mayor Baker, that are saying that people are losing trust in law enforcement because of what's happening with these ICE situations, and something needs to be done to restore it. Do you worry that all police, all law enforcement are being kind of brushed with a broad brush here when it comes to the activities going on in Minnesota?
Absolutely. I mean, trust is the political issue of our day. This is, something that we're seeing across the board, across different political issues. So, in this case, for sure. I mean, there's certainly these situations are chaotic. They're noisy. People are trying their best. Different things are being caught on camera. So, I think it's certainly true that not all law enforcement is navigating this incorrectly. I think there are plenty of folks out there trying to do their job and trying to do their best.
Yeah, the vast majority of them are doing it just fine when we talk about police across our country, including over in Troy. Your police officers have a tough job, and when you have people kind of looking at uniforms and badges with a dubious light because of what's happening, that could affect morale as well. How are your police officers doing?
For sure. We saw it back in 2020 with the George Floyd issues and the civil unrest that happened as a result of the tragic incidences there. And our police departments really do depend on people working together and people understanding that you can't paint everybody in the department with a broad brush, like you just said, Roop. But that's something that's really, really important. And also, our policing is done best and public safety is best achieved when we are working together and when people are not afraid to call the police when they need help or when they see something that they know isn't right. So it's important that that trust is rebuilt. It's important that we remember that the vast majority of police officers are good in this country. Same with our ICE agents. And that's why I really worry about some of the rhetoric that just says, well, get rid of them, abolish ICE or, defund the police, for example, when that was being said. Those are very dangerous things to say. We are dependent on having people understand that there are really good people in those departments.
Oh, the men and women.
That's how we stay safe.
Yeah, the men and women in blue are the first people you call when you have a problem at your house, when they come risking their own lives. So that's really important. All right, let's talk about our last issue for this particular segment, having to do with President Trump saying we should perhaps nationalize elections. Yeah. This goes against the very Constitution that says that basically elections are up to the state. I mean, that's for us to adjudicate, and the executive shouldn't be butting in. Do you worry about this at all? And by the way, you're looking at the elections clause in the Constitution right now, this Article 1. It's important, right?
Right. It's absolutely not up to the executive branch. The president has no authority over the elections in our states. Congress can. Obviously, we've seen Congress regulate elections and provide federal standards. But no, the beauty of our election system is that it is left up to the states in many aspects. Also, from a national security standpoint, if you have one federal election issue, it's much easier to hack that and target that. But if you've got 50 that you have to deal with, we're a much better, safer nation as a result.
And there's another thing called the SAVE Act. Gabby, I want to talk to you about that in the minute we have left here. It basically says we have to require state election officials to get in-person proof of citizenship from the people who are registering to vote. Do you think that's a good idea? Because that's what Carolyn Leavitt, the press secretary for the president, was saying he meant by nationalizing was to basically enact the SAVE Act. Do you think it's a good thing, or do you think that's dangerous?
Well, I'll tell you one thing, that Braver Angels, right after the 2020 election, we hosted hundreds of conversations throughout the country with an equal number of Democrats and Republicans to talk about the issue of election integrity, to hear from the people on the ground of what was important to them. And they felt unanimously that they wanted voting to be easy and cheating to be hard. That was really the guiding principle that they came through with. And they found some agreement on issues like voter ID. And so, folks on the ground are able to find, overlap on here when they're able to get in the same room. So I think some of this is a good step forward, that people really do want to have their elections to be secure while still accessible.
Integrity is really important. It's something that we all want because it's the bedrock of our democracy. Gabby Kearns, great to see you. Please come back on The Pulse again. Ethan Baker, thank you for your time as well. We appreciate it. We're turning to music after the break. People saying to artists like Bad Bunny, shut up and sing. But music and politics have always intersected. Music journalist Gary Graff joins us after the break. You're watching The Pulse on Fox 2.